Hey everybody, Chanda Branch here, Modern Black Mommy, and this is January 16th, 2024, and it is the National Day of Racial Healing. I felt like it was important to come on and share just a little bit of information about today. Even though it's late, I want to be sure that we understand that it's crucial that this work goes forward. So, the National Day of Racial Healing is always celebrated, at least for the last 8 years, on the day after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. So, I like to think of it this way. Yesterday, we celebrated the man. We celebrated an individual who gave so much, who persevered so greatly in the name of social justice, in the name of racial equity, and in the name of racial healing. And so today it's our turn to carry that forward and to make sure that we are doing everything in our power to ensure that we actually achieve the society that Dr. King dreamed of. So I wanted to come on, share just some information. I am not going to reinvent the wheel. The W.K. Kellogg Foundation, who is the sponsor for the National Day of Racial Healing, has done a magnificent job of putting together materials, videos, all kinds of resources for the community, for schools, for K-12 and college, for arts organizations. They've really done a really great job of putting that stuff together. So there's no need for me to recompile all of that, but I do want to walk you through and make sure that you understand where to find all of those resources and to break down what I think is the best resource for the day, which is the video that NBC News Now did. It was a video special that they recorded in Los Angeles and broadcast a little earlier in advance of the day. I spent some time today going over that video, and it's absolutely phenomenal, the resources that they've pulled together. So here we go. I want to just break down those resources and let you know exactly what I pulled out of it. I know everybody watching will get something different, so I'm hoping that you will go back and watch that video on your own. I'll make sure that the link is in the description. Here we go. So first of all, I want to remind everybody that the Day of Racial Healing is in alignment with the mission and vision of Modern Black Mommy, which is to raise Black kids who are safe, smart, happy, healthy, wealthy, and wise. Also whole. I think that it's absolutely vital that we are doing this work as mothers so that our kids aren't stuck doing this work later on. I think that if we don't do the work of healing for ourselves to create a world that our kids can live in and attain all of those things and be all of those things, then we have failed, essentially. You know, it doesn't matter how much money they have if they are still living in a world where their skin color is going to hold them back. It doesn't matter how intelligent they are if they are still living in a world where they do not have the same opportunities as children who look different than they do. So I think that I just wanted to remind everybody that Modern Black Mommy is doing this work on a regular basis, and we are making sure that we include these kinds of days and observances and recognitions so that we can set our kids up for success in the most full and holistic sense possible. So first things first. One of the first things that they address that I love about this special is that race is a construct. It is a made up thing. The title for this is going to be challenging and off-putting for some people. I recognize that. But what I also want people to understand is that even though race is a construct, it's a social construct that was made up to divide us and to keep us from integrating fully. I think that what we need to realize is this made up thing has a real place in our lives. Racism is systemic. Racism is embedded in so many of the foundations and institutions that we have to take part in as adults, that we have to take part in as Americans. And so I think that the first thing we have to recognize is, yes, we are all alike in our humanity, and race is something that was thrust upon us. But I think we also have to know and understand and recognize that it is a real thing that we have to deal with in order to move forward. They did a really good job of kind of tackling that point early on. Second thing that I love that they jumped on right away is land acknowledgments. The United States of America, as it is seated and as it is recognized as a nation with its certain boundaries, is a fairly recent phenomenon. There were people living on this land long before anyone discovered it. So I really like land acknowledgments. They take a moment to recognize the original people who occupied these lands before they were stolen. And I think that it's important to open with a ceremony that acknowledges where the land came from and who the people were who came before us. And this can happen in a couple of ways. You might do the research, find the correct names, and post that somewhere within your physical space. You might also, if you have programs that are happening, you might also begin with a land acknowledgement. If you are starting the season and you have a big kickoff ceremony, it would be great to invite some of the local natives to come and to lead a blessing ceremony and to have that land acknowledgement as you go forward into your new year, your new fiscal year, as you host celebrations. I think that land acknowledgements are a good way to set the tone and to understand that everything that we are doing on land that belonged to someone else. So land acknowledgements, you should look into that or research who was occupying that land previously. Point number 3, knowing matters. I identify as a Black woman. I am a descendant of the Middle Passage, is the way that one speaker on the special put it. My ancestors came over from Africa. Exactly where, I do not know. But what I also know is that I have friends and I have family members who are not necessarily direct descendants of the Middle Passage. Knowing and understanding the struggles of other people will help you relate much more closely to their culture. It will help you understand much more specifically all the ways that they have struggled. And it ultimately will help you to see some common ground, see some commonalities, and to be able to work in tandem and in unity with folks from other cultures. We've spoken about our Native brothers and sisters. The Japanese endured internment camps, which is addressed in the special. You have lots of different cultures who have all had their own specific struggles to identify with. And I think that knowing and understanding where everybody comes from gives you an opportunity to identify with their struggles and to come out stronger together on the other side of it. A national strategy for addressing the racial inequities, the institutional racism, the racial healing that has to take place is absolutely necessary. One community is doing it one way, another community is not doing it at all. There are some places where there's a half-hearted effort. There are other places where folks are all in. I think that it was well put that there needs to be a national strategy that allows folks to all have equitable access to the healing that needs to take place. What does that look like? That can be commissions that are appointed by municipal bodies. That can be universities reaching out into their communities with specific programming. It can be leadership training that goes out from nonprofit entities and organizations into the community. Whatever it is we are doing, we need a national strategy because this is a national issue. It is not one community at a time facing these things. I do feel and understand that there are specific nuances from one community to the next that need to be addressed. But I think that those items can be addressed and housed under a larger umbrella, and that, we can figure out a strategy that works first and then implement that strategy in the best ways across communities individually. Point number 5 is about safe spaces. This used to make me itchy a little bit, calling them safe spaces. We want everybody to feel good and loved and special and okay. I really prefer brave spaces where people can come in and have these hard conversations, where we can address these tough issues and where we can come out on the other side of it stronger, better, and ready to launch into the work, because the conversation is only one piece. The work is the other half of it. But what I've come to realize is that you can't get to a brave space without first having a safe space. So that is setting ground rules for these tough conversations. You can't expect people to just, walk into a bar and sit down and start chatting about race and their hangups and their prejudices and their biases. That's not realistic at all. I think you have to set up very specific spaces that allow for that conversation to happen naturally and for that conversation to flow. People need to know what the ground rules are and be expected to abide by them. I think that you need strategies in place for when the room gets hot, when the conversation really gets heated and people's feelings get tender and get involved, as is only right. I think that you've got to have cooler heads in the room and specific strategies that allow you to take a time out, take a breather. You need someone who knows and understands how to open the circle and close the circle properly. I was trained in circle keeping, and it has served me well in all of my conversations. It's changed the way that I address speaking to groups, and also interpersonally how I speak and converse with individuals, whether the conversation is going to be sensitive or not. It's given me some tools that I have in my back pocket that allow me to communicate in a much better way than I previously was communicating. So I highly recommend, if you have the opportunity to do some sort of circle keeping training or restorative circle practice training, to please take advantage of that and then to utilize it in the benefit of the community. Point 6 is one of my favorites to talk about. Healing requires us all. Whiteness was thrust upon white folks, just like Blackness was thrust upon Black folks, and otherness was thrust upon other folks. I think that understanding, again, point 1, that race is a construct, and also understanding what effective allyship looks like is critical in order to get this work done. You can launch this work with one group of people, but you cannot finish it without everybody at the table. You cannot come to a conclusion without everyone being able to come to this work, come to these conversations, and come to some realizations. And then also, you need your allies at the table because they are best equipped to go back to places of power where people of color have traditionally been kept out. They are best equipped to go into those places of power and to speak up and to speak truth and to bring to realization for some other folks exactly how certain policies are affecting people, how institutional racism shows up without people really realizing or recognizing what it is. And that's going to be the most critical part of the work. We have to be at the table, but we also have to have all of our other friends, including our allies, at the table with us in order for us to really make that leap forward and to get racial healing to a place where we can really feel the impact and feel its and feel the shift, the change. So speaking of unlearning, there are certain tenets. I'm sorry, this slide is so tiny. I'm going to make that bigger so you guys can see it. There are certain tenets that are innate to a white supremacist culture. There are certain ways of being that we as Americans have fallen into that are part of a culture that we must unlearn in order to get back to our own authentic culture. If you were here for the Kwanzaa special, you know that I speak a lot in regards to Kwanzaa about returning to what was authentically ours, a return to our own cultural norms and beliefs and understandings about the world. Many of these items go directly against everything that is specifically or culturally African in nature. Things like a sense of urgency, valuing an either or. You have to have this or that. Not being open to cyclical time. That's one that timeliness is one. People joke about being on CP timing. Well, it's a real thing because we're looking at the sun and tracking, well, it's about this time. When the sun reaches this point, then I do this thing. Whereas, reaching into your pocket and pulling out a pocket watch and tracking the individual seconds and minutes is a very Eurocentric time frame. So unlearning some of the things that have been, again, thrust upon us in the culture that we have, in the dominant culture, is going to be critical. It's going to be important. And again, everyone is going to have to unlearn some of these things. I think that people are going to find that culturally, there are ways of being that just make sense for them, that just make sense to them, and that those ways of being don't always align directly with other folks' ways of being. And I think we have to come to a place where we are okay with that, where we see it, understand it. And we've got to come to a place where we can recognize the best of those cultures and say, oh, okay, yeah, this rush sense of urgency is not serving anyone well. Let's take a more Afrocentric approach to tracking the sun and following things in a different understanding of what time is and what time means. That's an important one. You've got to unlearn some things in order to move forward. All right, this is the final point, and it's not one that was specifically made in the program that I'm reviewing, but it is suggested. There were so many wonderful speakers, authors, presenters, professors, nonprofit leaders, incredible folks who are doing this work on a daily basis. They are doing this work day in and day out. There are a number of books that were mentioned and recommended. There were a number of organizations that were lifted up. I think it's absolutely critical that everybody do your own work. Keep your eyes on your own paper, do your own work. The challenge that I have for the Modern Black Mommy crew is for you to find 2 books, journals, articles, 2 podcasts, to organizations to look up and to lift up and to support. I want you to go find 2 things that were mentioned in this program specifically, and I want you to go forward with actually reading and digesting that material. Journal about it, write about it if you need to. That's how I process best. And then I want you to convene a mommy circle, right? Get together with a diverse group of mommies. And I want you to just talk through what you've learned, what you've read, what you heard, and how you feel like it applies to you as a mom, and how you are taking and using that information to create the kind of world that we want our babies to inherit from us. I think that it's absolutely critical that we all are feeding our minds. And as much as I love a good romance novel, as much as I love a good Harlequin story, we've got to read some meat and potatoes. We've got to get some heavy hitting stuff in our brains also, so that we can be well educated, so that we can be well versed and able to have these tough conversations. I've been in situations where you enter into a conversation and you realize later that, oh, this was a gotcha. They're trying to they're trying to sneak up on me and make me look bad. And that's not easy to do, because I have actually done the reading, I've done the research, I've actually thought about these things, I've journaled about these things, and you don't want to be caught off guard when you are passionate about something. You want to make sure that you are investing the time to understand it thoroughly and to be able to speak knowledgeably about it, so that others can trust you when you have something to say on the matter, more than just not getting tripped up by folks. So that is the information that I had for you. Again, the link for all of this material is going to be right here on my Flow page. You can scan that document. I've put together a 1-page infographic with all of these points. You can go in and read them. That also has a link to the official site for the National Day of Racial Healing, which is sponsored by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation. It also has the link to the NBC News Now special. The special is really, really good watching. If you have an opportunity, spend the time, take a few minutes, and actually look over that video. You will enjoy it, and you will learn so much. You can go to my Flow page. That's flow.page/modernblackmommy. All the resources are there as well. And that's what I wanted to share with you. I did not want the day to pass without an observance of it, without mentioning it, and without giving you access to these resources, which are absolutely wonderful. They are so thorough. The study guides on that website, and the questions and just the information is abundant. Please take a moment to go and check that out. So this is Chanda Branch, Modern Black Mommy. I am signing off, and I am so grateful that you spent just a few moments with me this afternoon, and that you will be able to carry this work forward. Please engage me, leave me some comments. Check out the resources again in the description box, and let me know how else I can provide value for you, how else I can serve you, what other things you might need from me as I continue to produce these videos. Just let me know what it is you would like to see from me. I'm always happy to respond. So thank you again. Y'all have a good one.